steps are cool at dawn. Olive leaves still hold the night. Smoke is curling slow and thin. Names are whispered to the light. Sing, oh, sing to the stones and sky. Let the old words rise. Let the old words rise.
Så folkens, welcome back to another video. Today we are heading into some kind of different history from Kings and Generals. We are going to check out the Servile Wars. So there are a couple of wars I want to get into and some recent update on another video I want to do as well before we go to the big boys. I have a couple of massive videos coming, a longer series, they're pretty long videos. But yeah, I have 3 other videos I want to get to before that. 2 of them kind of got to me recently, so you guys might see them soon out. So yeah, this is the Servile Wars. I'm really curious to see, because obviously it's called Spartacus and other slave rebellions in Rome. But I recently found out that they're actually called the Servile Wars. I have no idea why. But yeah, I know a little. I heard about Spartacus. Don't really know much about the slave rebellion, but I know about him. And you know the thing where they're like, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. So I'm pretty curious of like other slave rebellions. So yeah, I'm pretty shocked I never actually heard about it, because like a huge portion of Rome's population was slaves. So but yeah, let's get into it.
After its final victory over Carthage in the Third Punic War in 146 BC, the Roman Republic was enjoying a period of relative peace, having established itself as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. However,
sorry for that spoiler alert for the new oversimplified video when it comes out. But I'm pretty sure we knew the score.
when there are not enemies abroad, enemies within will emerge. This is the story of the Servile Wars, a string of 3 slave rebellions that rocked the Republic in the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, culminating in the famous Gladiator Revolt and Last Stand. Though Spartacus's revolt in 73 BC is the most well-known today, it was by no means the first. That honour belongs to the one which happened in Sicily 60 years earlier in 135 BC.
Okay.
The Romans had conquered the...
So this is like, what, 15 years after the war, the fourth Macedonian War. I don't really like calling the fourth Macedonian War, like, didn't really matter that much. Let's just call it like a rebellion or a nuisance.
The majority of the island at the end of the First Punic War in 241 BC. Previous conquests on the Italian peninsula had resulted in annexation, and the locals in the areas, the Socii, were granted a substantial degree of autonomy. Though contributing troops to the Republic, they were not required to pay tribute, and they were treated more as allies with Rome holding hegemonic power. Meanwhile, Sicily became the first Roman province, and so was a different case. Not only was it a mix of numerous different cultures, but it was also a place of substantial wealth thanks to its fertile lands and ideal location. As a
Ooh.
result, the Romans imposed a new system.
You never really hear like fertile land when you talk about Sicily. Interesting.
Of provincial rule over the island.
I always thought like Sicily was like a mountainous beach resort.
With a governor being assigned and tribute collected. Although the province was under Roman rule, the Carthaginians still had substantial interest and influence there, and it would not be until after the Second Punic War in 201 BC that these last Carthaginian vestiges were forced from the island. Following the war, sympathizers of the Carthaginian cause had their land confiscated, resulting in huge swathes of land being claimed by the Republic. This fertile but cheap land attracted many investors who bought huge tracts and began establishing vast estates, precursors to latifundia. Slavery was rife.
I wonder how much land would cost back in the day, and
Not only in Sicily, but many landowners did not provide enough food or clothing for the slaves, who, as a result, were often forced to turn to banditry and plundering to survive.
really slaves had like I think when you look at like slaves in like Roman times, you look at like they were constantly like chained until they would like work. So they were like walking around the estate and were like able to like go to other places to like steal stuff. Wow. I guess you can't really blame them. Like they're slaves. Is there really a worse punishment? Like if you get caught, what are you gonna punish you with? Enslavement.
Though this was a constant worry for the senators in Rome, the lands in Sicily were often held by powerful equites who had judiciary powers. Thus, whenever charges were brought against the landowners, they were simply dismissed. With the Senate effectively...
I'm shocked they can even charge the landowners. Like, even say something about like, imagine being a slave and you are able to complain about your work environment. Damn.
Powerless, it was only a matter of time before such a disenfranchised group were unified and rose in revolt, something that finally happened in 135 BC. Yunus was a Syrian slave, one of many who had been brought over to the island and now lived in the city of Enna. But instead of being a laborer, he was somewhat of an entertainer. He performed magic tricks, fire-breathing, and claimed to have divine visions and messages that prophesied him becoming a king. Antigenes, Yunus's master, would often parade Yunus at dinner parties, having him perform his tricks and laughing at his claims to kingship. However, the slaves in Enna were treated particularly badly, and when they conspired to revolt in 135 BC, they turned to Yunus as their leader, inspired by his proclamations of divine favor.
Is that a volcano?
The revolt began when 400 of these slaves rose up in Enna, killing their masters, along with their masters' wives and children, and gathering other slaves in the city to their courts. The revolt was brutal. Kangaroo courts were established, and the accused tortured and executed, and Yunus ordered that all of the wealthy male citizens of Enna be hunted down and killed, save for those who could forge weapons. These the slaves themselves put into chains and forced them to work producing weapons for the rebels. Yunus proclaimed himself king and took the name Antiochus after the famous Seleucid king.
Really?
Soon he was able to assemble and arm a force of 6,000.
That's interesting that he chose the Seleucid king. Wow.
Slaves, some with proper weaponry, others with more basic weapons, slings, hatchets, and rudimentary spears. Having been forced into a life of banditry by their masters, most had at least some fighting experience, and some had even been soldiers who had been enslaved as prisoners of war or bodyguards. With this force assembled, he began ravaging the countryside and gathering still more men to his cause until his army numbered some 10,000. The Romans did make attempts to quell the revolt. However, they had not fully realized the seriousness of the situation.
Yeah, they're probably not going to take the slave rebellion that serious. Like, they don't have proper weapons, but like, again, like, it was around 10,000. It's not a lot of men compared to what Rome is used to, and they probably don't have the best armor, the best weapons, but they are trained.
And the small forces that they sent to deal with the rebels were quickly overcome by sheer force of numbers. Soon after this, another group of slaves on Sicily revolted, this time led by a slave and infamous brigand called Cleon. He had been a fighter since his youth in Asia Minor, and upon hearing of Eunice's success, had seized upon the opportunity. The Romans initially hoped that these two factions would fight and thus destroy each other, but instead, Cleon sided with Eunice, bringing a further 5,000 men to his...
Yeah, why would they end up fighting each other? Like, imagine both of them, like, start building, like, their own kingdoms and immediately started fighting each other. Like, that would be so stupid.
Cause and acting as his general.
I can respect that a lot. Like,
Together, they were able to capture the city of Acragas, whose defences had been left in disrepair. The slaves were careful to target the wealthy, mostly leaving the lower classes alone, and due to the huge economic disparity in Sicily, many of the lower class even rallied to Eunice, further swelling his numbers. After a month.
Damn. So, like, even Romans joined the new king, Antiochus. Damn. That's pretty wild.
A Roman praetor, Lucius Hypsaeus, was sent with 8,000 Sicilian militia to quell the revolt.
8,000.
Though the fact that a praetor was sent shows that the Romans were now taking the revolt more seriously.
Yeah, but you're sending 8,000.
They were still not doing enough.
Yeah.
By this time, Eunice and Cleon had 20,000 men under their command. The 8,000 militia proved no match for their more numerous and determined rivals and were quickly routed. Following this, the revolt spread even further across the island, the slaves taking numerous cities and rallying still greater numbers to their cause.
Damn.
3 other praetors with similar-sized forces were also sent against the rebels, each being defeated in turn. Their success inspired revolts in other parts of the Republic, small revolts rising in both Rome itself and Greece, although both of these were quickly crushed before they could develop. In 133 BC, the revolt in Sicily was still going strong though, the slaves' numbers now growing.
Yeah, they conquered almost all of Sicily. They just need Lilybaeum, Gela, Campania, Syracuse, Ravenna,
to as many as 60,000, controlling the majority of the island's key
60,000
cities and even minting their own coins. But Rome now decided to act with force, sending an army headed by the consul Lucius Piso. Under his command, the Romans were able to make their first significant gains, recapturing Morgantina, killing 8,000 slaves in the battle, and crucifying those taken as prisoners. This would act as a turning point in the Romans' fortunes. The following year, another consul, Publius Rupilius, was also sent to the island. Rupilius began a ruthless campaign to finally quell the rebellion. He first besieged the city of Tauromenium, forcing the rebels inside to resort to cannibalism. Finally, a slave called Serapion betrayed the rebels, opening the gates to the Romans. The Romans stormed the city, and the slaves, starved and in no condition to fight, put up little resistance. Rupilius ordered that all the slaves be rounded up, tortured, and then thrown off a cliff.
Damn.
Following this, he marched to the rebels' de facto capital of Enna, where Cleon was stationed, and once again besieged the city. He fought bravely, but was nonetheless cut down, his body displayed by Rupilius to those still defending the city walls. The rebels' morale broke at the sight, and once again they were betrayed, with the Romans seizing the city. Eunice had not been present during the siege, but upon hearing of the death of his general and fall of Enna, he fled with 1,000 men into the mountains. By this point,
only 1,000 is left.
The slaves knew they were defeated. Rupilius's ruthless tactics had worked in breaking the morale of the rebels, and the few who remained with Eunice knew that Rupilius would soon be marching on them next. Rather than face the brutal punishments of Rupilius, the slaves instead decided to behead each other rather than be taken alive.
Whoa. Beheading each other. Wow. That's another level of suicide. But I kind of get it, like, there's no way Rome is gonna, like, let them live after this.
When Rupilius arrived in the mountains, he found Eunice with a few close friends hiding in a cave. The slave leader was dragged out and imprisoned. Though the Romans planned to torture and execute Eunice as they had with other slaves, he died of illness in prison before they could.
Really?
The following year, 131, Rupilius was left in Sicily with a select group of soldiers to mop up the remnants of the revolt. But with the deaths of Cleon and Eunice, the First Servile War was over. In total, the war had cost the Romans as many as 20,000 in battle, as well as an unknown number of civilians. Although the revolt had little tangible effect on the Republic, they did become an inspiration.
Okay. Pretty interesting. I'm really curious, like, what war did this happen? And this right here, because I can't really figure it out. Because this seems like Rome has control over the territory of Pergamon and Rhodes.
For later slaves seeking to overthrow their masters. In 104 BC, just 30 years after the First Servile War, Sicily would once again be plunged into the chaos of a slave uprising.
Alright, thank you for two kings and generals. This was the First Servile War. The original video will be down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you guys want to check out some more history, I will have a video up on the screen. If you guys want to check out some myths and mythology, I will have a playlist up on the screen. Otherwise, see ya.
Bare feet in the furrowed ground, dust on my tongue, heat bearing down, sun like a hammer on my back, name I was born with, they took that. But my chains flow soft like water, running through this tired soul. You can bind my hands together, you can't cage what rivers know.